Hello to everyone. I wanted to come back with one more small discussion of what happened to me during this time of health issues that I think relates to the body. And I came out of the hospital from the last episode that I had told you about in the videos, and I didn't feel good, and I didn't feel good at all ever. My body was not healing, it was not mending, and I knew it wasn't. And it didn't take long till it showed up that I had a bad infection. I had gone septic, and I actually checked myself into the emergency room back into the hospital about 5 days later. It was on a Sunday evening. They kept me there through the night and then admitted me and diagnosed me as being septic, which is extremely serious. So they put me back in the hospital. And it was that next night, I was, Patty had been there, my wife, she had left, and I had talked with Brother Daniel and Connie, and I fell off to sleep somewhere around 10 o'clock. And then at about 11 o'clock, I woke up. And when I woke up, the angel was sitting in the room. My angel sitting there in the chair. And he was looking at me, and I spoke up. I said, "I am very glad you're here." I said, "You always give me strength and comfort, and I appreciate this." And he spoke back to me, and he said to me, "And your presence gives me the same." And I don't know what he meant by that even today. I never dreamed that I was helping him. But he said, "Me being in your presence gives me strength and comfort also." I said to him, I said, "I don't know how much more physical pain I can take. The embarrassment, the pain is here." But I said, even beyond the pain, it's the embarrassment of everybody that had believed things against me that just weren't true. I said, they all think that I'm here, and I'm going through all these things from the first operation to the second, and then to the infections, and at a point of death and brushing up against death for such a long period of time. And they think it's a punishment to me for something that I said I didn't do. And so the angel was very calm. He looked at me and he said, "Yes, a touch of the cross is always a sobering thing." And it hit me like, what did Jesus do to belong there on that cross, hanging? And when it hit me, my mind began to race. I began to think back across his last 12 hours, not his 33 and a half years, but his last 12 hours. And how overwhelmingly embarrassed it must have felt to know that he had done none of the things that they had accused him of. And some of the things that he had spoken were certainly outright moved away from the law. So they were trying to make him feel guilty for those things. And I thought about it, and as I was thinking, the angel looked right at me, and he said, "That's it, prophet. That's it." He said, "Put it all together now, and let's begin mending." And when he said that, I felt something move through my body. And for a split second, I said to myself, I just got healed. I feel it. I felt it in my body. I never felt good about my body for months and months and months. That was the first time I felt good about my body. And he said, let's begin to mend now. I sat there, he stayed, he sat in the chair, and after a few minutes of silence, he wasn't there anymore. I looked and he wasn't there. And I realized that I was receiving a cleansing, not only for a physical blood, because I did go in and when I had the infection, they had to give me almost 3 liters of cold plasma, a blood transfusion. And so that's why I had to stay for so long afterwards, is because they were watching to see how the blood was going to, how the organs of the body that, were going to accept this blood. And so I realized I was receiving a cleansing that was not only for a physical blood, but it was a cleansing of a spiritual, eat of my flesh, drink of my blood. And so when I began to realize that that was what was happening to me, the problem was that it was old blood in my system. Even the doctor, just the other day, he said to me, I don't know really what happened to you. He said the infection was not that great, but it was moving all through your blood. And he said you had pools of blood that just wasn't adhering, wasn't staying in the veins. He said it was laying in different parts of your body. And he said I had to wash all that out. And he said, I don't know what happened. He said, but I know it's clear now. And he said, you're well on your way to healing. But what was happening is I had an issue with old blood. You know what blood is? It's the Word. Brother Branham said the blood of the 7 church ages was the Holy Ghost, and the blood is the Word. And so I had an issue with old Word and the infections that it had caused in my body in the different places. And it sounds like what's going on for the age. I'm not saying I'm anything other than I'm your brother, but it sounds like that there was something going on in the ages that was being represented in the body of a Tory. But William Branham always said the prophets to an age had to feel the interpretation of the age within themselves and experience it, like Hosea did, like Jesus did, like all the different ones did. They had to feel it within themselves and experience, and what was going on, they had to experience the age. But I certainly didn't think it was that personal, so to speak. I should have really thought about it when, you look at the end of William Branham's age, and he died in a fiery car crash, pretty fitting for the age. And so when the Lord is using somebody to represent an age, they're going to go through it and they're going to feel the interpretation of it. And so that was what was happening with me that last trip to the hospital. They cleared it all up. They washed me out. And after a few days, it was funny. The doctor came back in, and when he came back in, I was a little surprised when it happened, but he walked through the door. He sat down in the same position that the angel was sitting in, right in the same chair, the same everything. And I was a little bit sleepy, and the doctor's name was Christopher, Christ. He came into the room and walked straight to the chair where the angel was sitting at, and in the chair, and he looked at me and he said, is it okay if I sit here? I want to sit here for a few minutes. And I said, sure, yes it is. And he said, your presence always strengthens me and comforts me, because you're helping me understand more and more about what's going on. And I said, well, your presence certainly comforts me too. And my mind shot right back to the angel of the Lord sitting in the same position when we said the same words. And here sits Christ, Christopher, The surgeon who worked on my body cleaned up all my blood, took out the old blood. Here he sits saying the same words to me and me to him. And when I seen that, it was just such a surprise, so to speak. But then I began to recognize what the angel wanted me to recognize, and that is that nothing is coincidence. Everybody sitting around you, every person you talk to, it is Christ. And so we talked for just a couple of minutes there, and he said, "Your presence always comforts me." And so I'm sitting there looking at him, and he has on a white coat, a white robe, and he pulls out of his coat pocket it's like a cake. And he pulls out a little carton of milk, and he says, "Is it okay with you if I eat some cake and drink some milk with you?" And I said, "It's certainly fine with me." And my mind was just rushing about Abraham and Melchizedek. And Brother Brenham said Melchizedek came and sat down with Abraham and ate whole cake and drank goat's milk. And here we are, and I'm sitting with my surgeon who healed my body, and I'm sitting there eating whole cake and drinking milk and talking about how comfortable it is for each one of us to be together. And I knew that nothing is coincidence. I'm beginning to wake up to everything that I see, touch, feel, smell, hear is not coincidence. It is to us. I just sat there in amazement. And so he got up and he walks to the door. And I said, "I want to say to you, you're a good man. And you show it in your sensitivity and your love and everything." And he looked at me and he said, "I'll be right here for you. You call me if you need me. Don't ever worry about it. You call me." And I said, "Dr. Christopher, I will." Now the blood count is very good. Something that happened to me the day they took me into the operating room, and I wanted to bring this for just a minute. The surgeon Christopher walked in and asked me how I was doing. And so they had me on one bed, and they moved me over to the other bed and was getting ready to give me my anesthesia and things like that. And when they moved me over, I was flat back, and I was looking up at the ceiling, and I wanted to read what was on the ceiling. Here it is. This was on the ceiling of the operating room. He sent from above. He took me, he drew me out of many waters. Psalms 18 and 16, if you want to read it. When they took me into the operating room and they led me on to the table, they laid me down there. I looked above me, and that scripture was on the ceiling of the operating room. The name of the operating room, which I looked at it, I saw it, and over the door it said the covey. Now anyone knows that a covey is a group of doves. So here we were in the operating room, and he sent from above, and he took me and he drew me out of the waters, or out of the blood. And when he drew me out of the blood, it was with a group. It was with a covey of doves. You know who that covey of doves was? It's you. All of us are in this together. It wasn't just me. And we need to understand that everything that happens to us, everything that happens to you, is something going on Christ personal in your life. I came home, and it was a few days later, and I was out back, and I was walking. Then I will shut this down. But I was walking, and the next door neighbor had a large field, and he was mowing around the fence line, my fence line out here. And he saw me walking around out back. I was walking barefoot, doing some earthing. And he pulled up and stopped, and he got off, and he had a brand new Kubota tractor. Very, very nice. Anybody that knows tractors and equipment knows that. And he gets off and he comes over and he says, "Hey," he said, "do I have a new neighbor?" And I said, "Yes, sir, you do." And he said, "Well," he said, "just wanted to introduce myself." And I said, "Well, my name is Don." And he said, "I wanted to let you know," he said, "I'll be around." And he said, "I'll be doing a lot of work here, and I own this place." And he said, "Just wanted to tell you," he said, "I made it through the end time of my death of my family." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Look," he said, "I'm 78 years old." He said, "My father died at 77. My mother died at 77. I had many aunts and uncles that died at 77. 77 is a bad number for us. It's the end time." But he said, "I'm 78. I got a new life. It's new." And I automatically knew his name. And I said, he said, "Can I mow your yard for you or anything?" And I said, "Well, I have a son, Joseph, that comes down and mows my yard for me while I'm in a condition I'm in." And he said, "My name is Joseph." And I said, "You know what? I knew that." And he started laughing, and I looked at him standing there, and he had a black headband around his head, and written across the front of it was Halo, Halo. And I was just bursting on the inside with what was going on around me. And I thought, "Lord, you're telling me it's finished for me. I made it through this. I'm mending and everything is going well." And you're telling us we are a covey. We are a group. We are a covey of doves. And you have lifted us all out of that water age, that age of Pisces. And you brought us all up higher, and you have delivered us, and you have done so many things for us. And he sent from above. He took me. He took us. He drew me out of many waters. Psalms 18 and 16. We've been drawn out of the church ages as a great covey of doves. All of these things are us now. Don't think that you're not being dealt with. Don't think that things are not for you. All of these things are you. It's us, and we are learning by experience. Love bless each one of you, and I hope this has helped you.